most super sedans are usually refined, professional, subtle, even quiet in some cases, designed to humiliate a Ferrari while also being able to blend into morning traffic. This is the opposite end of the spectrum. The loud, noisy, spoiler rally-focused sedan called the Evo, baby. It's 1982. And the FIA has introduced brand spanking new Group B rally regulations. You only had to make 200 cars. You can have unlimited power, unlimited material, unlimited aero. Everything you wanted, you could have, provided you made 200 cars. And this naturally got people excited. Especially manufacturers, one of them being Mitsubishi, who planned a Group B WRC entry for 1987 with a 350 horsepower, all-wheel drive Starion. And when Group B got cancelled, they had a near fully working prototype and nowhere to race it. So, they entered Group A WRC, not with the Starion, no, they chucked the all-wheel drive turbocharged guts from the Starion prototype into a Galant. They called it the VR4. It was a brilliant little machine. The 4G 63T engine made 237 horsepower and was Mitsubishi's first all-wheel drive performance car. And it won 6 rallies during its WRC career, but, well, it was quite big. And European rally stages were not very big. And when they were competing against the likes of the Lancer Delta, the Ford Escort, the Toyota Celica, it's just too large for its competition and for the manufacturing it is entering in. So, they went to their next step. One sedan size smaller. The Mitsubishi Lancer. Now the Lancer made a lot of sense. It was smaller, it was lighter, and you could still fit the all-wheel drive and the 4G63 engine in it. It also had quite a bit of history in rallying. In the 1960s, it was so good in African rallies, it was nicknamed the King of Cars. This meant that we now have a 247 horsepower, all-wheel drive, 4-door sedan with a massive homologated rear wing on it, a massive turbocharger, and a 0 to 60 time of just 5.2 seconds. But you can't just call it a sedan that's lacking, power windows, power seats, ABS, and rear wipers, a Lancer, because that's a budget-friendly front-wheel drive economy car. What this is an evolution of the Lancer. Hey, that's a good name. This thing was an icon. The RS models weighed just 2,500 pounds with all-wheel drive and 4 doors. You just don't get that anymore. But this thing was proper good fun. Not only could it out-accelerate a lot of vehicles from its day, it could out-handle them. The thing was a joy through the corners. And the Evo 2 followed it up. And what we'll see from this point on is the Evos are more or less just evolutions of the evolutions. So instead of redefining the wheel, they're taking a Porsche route, similar with the 911. No massive game-changing improvements, just little upgrades here and there to keep everything fresh and good as the years go by. Which means the Evos 2 and 3 made a few more horsepower, up to 270 by 1996, had wider tires, bigger wing, lighter front sway bars, more airflow into the engine and reducing lift. These things were the same great car, but just a little bit better, a little bit faster accelerating, a little bit higher top speed, a bit better handling. At least until the Evo 4, which was a full refresh of the Evo lineup in 1996. It gained a few pounds, sure, but it still weighed less than 3,000 pounds, and the engine was flipped 180 degrees for better balance and to eliminate torque steer. And the RS models got new limited slip differentials, chassis reinforcements, an adjustable rear wing, optional air conditioning, and critically, sweet rally fogs, cause that's how you know it's rally car. And again, the Evo 5 was just an evolution of the Evo 4. Had better interiors with Recaro seats, active yaw control, aka torque vectoring improvements, bigger brakes, which means bigger tires. And the power was the exact same, thanks to revised turbocharging and brand new injectors. And a gentleman's agreement that was definitely followed by everybody. Which brings us on to the Evo 6, as we round out the century in 1999. Power once again stayed the same because of brand spanking new pistons, a larger intercooler and oil cooler, and brand new titanium turbine blades for the turbocharger. Personally, this is my favorite looking Evo. This thing looks fantastic. It also handles brilliantly. Still does 0 to 60 in around 5 seconds, if not less. And the Tommy Mackinnon edition dropped the weight and the ride height and added some sweet racing decals in red paint. It looks freaking awesome. We'll cover why Tommy got his own special edition in just a little bit. But in the meantime, the Evo 7 in 2001 quite literally changed the Evo game. First, Mitsubishi did not have to follow Group A homologation purposes for the World Rally Championship anymore, which means technically the Mitsubishi Evo wasn't necessary at this point because there's no homologation. But, they didn't care because it was very good selling, so they doubled down on the Evo with chassis improvements, better limited slip differentials, increased engine airflow, a new active center differential, and a 157 mile an hour top speed. The Evo 8 just 2 years later gave us an aluminum roof, new Bilstein shocks, improved all-wheel drive, and a carbon fiber spoiler, and critically, we got it here in the US for the first time. Although, we got a detuned version making 271 horsepower because of emission regulations, bloody California. And strange enough, for the first time I think in history, Japan did not get the best version. That title belongs to Britain? Britain got the Evo FQ400 made by Rally Art UK. They only made 100 of them in 2005 only. The 4G63 was tuned up to 405 horsepower and 355 foot-pounds of torque, and the thing weighed less than 3,000 pounds. With all-wheel drive, this thing was a goddamn rocket ship. It could do 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, 0 to 100 in under 10, and a top speed of 175 miles an hour. This thing was stupid fast accelerating, and it could back it up in the corners. The FQ400 completed a damp lap of the Top Gear test track, only a second slower than a Lamborghini Murcielago. And the Murcielago was in the dry. This thing was absurdly fast. I want one. But they go for a lot of money if they go for any at all, because, well, you know, super rare. The Evo 9, though, was back to more refined craziness. Power was actually legitimately upped to 290 horsepower and 300 torque, which meant a quarter mile in under 13 seconds. And it featured new dynamic driving modes, such as tarmac, snow, and dirt, which changes the all-wheel drive system to match each road surface. The FQ series did come back, but with a measly 360 horsepower. But don't worry, if you're bummed out by the minimalistic 360 horsepower FQ series, they made a frickin' estate car version. It's not the best estate car I've ever seen, but that's frickin' sick nonetheless. Which brings us on to the Evo 10. The Evo 10 is very controversial. First off, every single Evo generation had two things in common. One, they only lasted 3 model years. So, for instance, the Evo 9 was sold from 2005 to 2007. The Evo 8 was sold from 2003 to 2005, stuff like that. And two, they all had the 4G63 in them. which is why fans erupted in uproar with pitchforks and torches when the 4G63 was thrown out of the Evo 10 in favor of a 291 horsepower 4B11 engine. It was also the heaviest one by far thanks to new crash safety regulations at 3,100 pounds, which is still pretty light though, not gonna lie. And the final edition made 305 horsepower. Wait, what? Final edition? Yeah, the Evo 10 soldiered on for 9 years before finally being discontinued in 2016 due to lack of sales and Mitsubishi's financial woes. But as a send-off, Rally Art came back with the FQ440 as a send-off to the Evo in Europe. It had new fuel injectors, a new intercooler, new exhaust manifolds, and a new ECU that mapped 444 horsepower and 412 foot-pounds of torque. Sure, it weighed 3,500 pounds, but could do 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds at a top speed of 186 miles an hour. It is still to this day the fastest Mitsubishi ever made. There were only 40 of them in the world. All of them were sold in Britain at 82 grand a piece, and they only came in white. This is where things get a little sad. You see, Mitsubishi is not exactly great in the financial department. And with this pandemic thing, they're struggling even more. And as new regulations are pushing EV cars and the discontinuation of the internal combustion engine, it seems that the fire-spitting all-wheel drive rally car for the road is not destined to be revived. And the Evo's legacy is now in the hands of the Lancer crossover. But look on the bright side, because the Evo has had one hell of a rally history. I told you we'd come back to it. You see, as I mentioned earlier, the Galant VR4, as great as it was too big for these rally stages, but the Evos were nice and nimble, which means that from 1993 to 2005, the Evo won 26 rallies, and in 1999, they secured Mitsubishi's only World Rally Championship. And also, during that time, from 1996 to 1999, Tommy Mäkinen won 4 consecutive drivers' titles. The man was on fire with the Evo, and critically, it gave us the greatest rivalry of all time, arguably. Subaru versus Mitsubishi, the clash of the titans that still goes on to this day, in fact. While sure neither of them compete in the World Rally Championship, they're heavily involved in national rally championships across the globe. The US Rally Championship is a constant battle between Subaru and privateer Mitsubishi Evo 10s. Same thing in Africa. I mean, out of the last 12 Safari rallies, Mitsubishi and Subaru have won every single one of them, with Mitsubishi being on top, once again reclaiming their title as the king of cars in Africa. So, while the Evo may be dead, technically speaking, its rally history continues to be made to this day.